Hi everybody and welcome. This is Books with Asia. I am Asia and today I have for you my May wrap up. Okay, so I read 9 books in May. Let's see, I have 3 4 stars, I have 4 3 stars, and then I have 2 2 stars. That's pretty bad actually for me. That's really not that great. I ended up reading a lot of really short stuff this month because I think I went through a little bit of a reading hangover. I'm trying to figure out if it was because of the bad book that I started the month off with, or if it was because of the really good books that I ended April with. You know, sometimes you just read a really good book and you're like, nothing is gonna live up to this. I don't know, it could be a combination of both. So let's get into it. The first book that I read in May is The Rise of Kyoshi by F.C. Yee. I actually read this via ebook, but I happen to have the hard copy, so I'll just be holding that to save myself a little time in editing. As is probably obvious, this is Kyoshi's origin story from Avatar: The Last Airbender. And if you haven't watched Avatar, I don't know what to tell you. You need to just watch it. Kyoshi is one of the avatars from the original animated series history. So she was a couple avatars before Aang. Yeah, so we have a little novelization. It's actually a duology of sort of her origin story. What's sort of interesting about it, like sort of the spin that they put on it, was that Kyoshi was not originally believed to be the Avatar. And so that's addressed in this book. I did not like this book. I wanted to like it so bad, but I could barely get emotionally attached to Kyoshi, let alone any of the side characters. There was a lot of sort of political things going on, like gangs and country relations going on that had nothing to do with the original show, which I guess is sort of my fault for not liking that. Like, I don't necessarily blame the book for that. Yeah, I just felt like I didn't know what was going on through most of this. I got to the 70% point and I really just wanted it to be over, but I pushed through for my girl Kyoshi right here. I do have a couple positives. Like, there was a scene in the middle of this book where Kyoshi gets her fans, and that was like, that had a lot of impact for me because first of all, I hadn't even really thought about her fans like up until that point in the book. And second of all, it was like something that I recognized from the show. It was super cool. Like, it was very intense and like dramatic. That is probably like the redeeming factor for me in this. I'm just sad that I didn't like it. I ended up giving it 2 stars. Yeah, I don't think I will be continuing this duology. Sorry, Kyoshi. Okay, my next one is a very short, I would call this a short story. It's called Feed by Avita Weiss. Feed is like an erotic short story. It is basically a scene between a succubus and like a moth person. I decided to read this because I felt that slump coming on and I was like, I just want something really fast. There's not a whole lot to say about it. It was like I said, it was like 60 or 70 pages. It was very short. It was pretty good. Like, I don't really have a whole lot of complaints. Like, my one complaint is that it was not really grounded with a whole lot of context. I wasn't too sure who the main character was. I don't even remember her name. Like, the spot was not really as good as I would have liked, but like, I can't exactly explain why it wasn't. I really like that it was written in 3rd person. For some reason lately, I'm not really liking stuff written in 1st person. The moth person character was somebody who used he and they pronouns, and those pronouns were actually used interchangeably throughout the text, which I thought was really cool and interesting to see. But yeah, like I said, very short. I don't really have a whole lot of thoughts about this. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I feel like it was so short that I shouldn't even rate it, but I did. Next, I have another short one. This is a novella. This is The Emperor's Soul by Brandon Sanderson. I listened to the audiobook narrated by Angela Lynn. This is a novella. Okay, so I have not read any Brandon Sanderson. This novella is set in the world of Elantris, to my understanding. It's about Shay, who is a capital F forger who can copy and remake things using magic. She is captured after a heist attempt, and the people who captured her ask her to remake their emperor's soul because the emperor has been basically catatonic ever since an assassination attempt. I was really curious to get into Brandon Sanderson. I feel like this is sort of uncommon, but I had not heard of Brandon Sanderson until like a couple years ago. I was very delighted to see that he had done a novella because his books are so huge and so intimidating. Reading this, like, I see what people are talking about with Brandon Sanderson. Like, his writing is actually so good. Everything is just so like airtight, like it's just seamless, like it all, as a puzzle, it all just fits together pretty much perfectly. So I totally get what people are talking about when they say that like Brandon Sanderson is an excellent author. Like it was very good, but I will say just something about it didn't really grab me. I ended up giving The Emperor's Soul 4 stars. I am a little bit more motivated to read a proper Brandon Sanderson novel now. So my next one is The Hollow Heart by Marie Rakowski. I read this via ebook. This is the sequel to The Midnight Lie, which I read in April, I think. This follows Nirim after the end of the first book, after she loses her heart to the god of thieves. It also follows Sid after she's left the island and gone back to her home. This was pretty good. It was quick for me to get through. Like I didn't really get that bored at any point while reading it. My one comment is that I feel like the ending came pretty abruptly. Like I turned that last page, I said this in my vlog, I turned that last page and I was like, oh, that's the ending? Okay, cool. Things were ending there, but I think I just expected it to go a little bit further. I talked about this in my recent vacation vlog. Watching what Nirim did in this book was sort of cool in that like sort of painful like negative arc kind of way. I guess like watching a train wreck. I was super drawn to the world building, even more so in this book than the first one. It gave me a lot of inspiration, I guess. And I did appreciate that this book was more plot focused than the first one. I really like this duology a lot. Sid was not really as charming in this book as she was in the first one, but still love Sid. I gave The Hollow Heart 4 stars. My next one, which I also read during my vacation, but I completely forgot to mention it or talk about it on the vlog at all, and that is Stalked by the Kraken by Lillian Lark. I read it via ebook. It is a paranormal romance who follows Rose, who is a sort of witchy matchmaker of paranormals, and the other POV is Gideon, who is an ancient kraken. Again, I chose this for the same sort of reason that I chose Feed earlier, and that is because I just wanted something really easy to read, really easy to get through, something really quick, and this definitely satisfied all those categories. The writing was mostly fine except for those damn comma splices that drove me absolutely crazy. If you know what those are, I don't really want to like make this a grammar channel, but a comma splice is when you separate two clauses in a sentence by a comma as opposed to a semicolon, a period, or a colon. So stuff like that just instantly takes me out of a book. Like it reads to me like, oh, this author doesn't know how to use commas. Interesting. It didn't ruin the experience for me. It was just something that like I noticed with my stupid little laser eyes. Other than that, like the story was really cute. I thought the plot was really good, and it had, like, for what it is, the stakes were pretty much perfect. Like they were kind of just on par. There was nothing world ending and nothing too low key. I liked the chemistry between the leads. I liked Gideon as a person. Rose is obviously, I don't read too much romance, but I do think that there's always an element of like audience surrogate in the main character. So I didn't have a whole lot of feelings about Rose, but Gideon was cool. And I really liked that the characters had stuff going on that was not about each other. Like their whole lives were not about the other person. They had other stuff going on. That was cool. So I gave Stalked by the Kraken 3 stars. My next one is We Unleash the Merciless Storm by Taylor K. Mejia. This is the sequel to We Set the Dark on Fire. We Set the Dark on Fire is completely from Danny's perspective, and this second book in the duology is completely from Carmen's perspective. We follow Carmen in this one as she sort of rejoins her fellow revolutionaries after the events of the first book. This one was way too drawn out for me. It was slow. It took to the 50% mark for anything to like really happen, and then it like really popped off for like a couple of chapters there, but then it just like slowed down again. And I also talked about this one in my vacation vlog. The prose like kind of took a turn for the worse compared to the first book. At that midway point where things like really got crazy there for a little bit. I really loved that. I think the slowness of the plot, it's fine in the sense that it led to that. Those events made sense. It's fine. Same thing as the midpoint. The ending was really cool, and I do like how it came about, and it's just sort of the lead ups to those were very slow for me. One other thing that I really loved was how grief was handled by the characters and the guilt of grief. It was just very real to me, and it was really well done. I don't know, because it was a little bit too slow, I ended up giving this book 3 stars. The next one is The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joan He. This was narrated by Nancy Wu. Listen to the audiobook. This is a YA dystopian sci-fi who follows C, a girl stranded on an island with no memories except those of her sister, and also Casey, who's a young STEM prodigy who lives in an eco-city, which are sort of the last bastions of safety under climate collapse. I read this because of that cover. That cover is gorgeous. I'm gonna paste the name of the artist over the video because I do not have that handy right now. But, gorgeous cover, but this book did not land for me like almost at all. I had no clue what was going on, especially in the Casey chapters. The C chapters, which were set on the island, were like a little bit more simple and easy to understand. But the Casey chapters, I think what happened was I could have missed something, but I felt like I had no context for Casey's world, and so I just felt totally unmoored the entire time. The prose was excellent, like it was really good and polished. I did eventually, like probably after the 50% mark or so, I started to understand the C chapters, the girl on the island. The twist I thought was really cool, and the narration was also really, really, really good. Something about it must have gripped me enough to finish it because I didn't DNF it, I guess. So I ended up giving it 2 stars overall. My last one is The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. I listened to the audiobook, narrated by 3 people. We have Amanda Dolan, Justice Bolding, and Dan Bittner. This is a contemporary YA who follows Alex. Alex's sister was murdered, I think, several years ago before the start of the story. The killer went unpunished, and so Alex took revenge into her own hands. I had first heard of Mindy McGinnis thanks to Allie Sears. Hi, Allie. And this audiobook was one that just happened to be available on Libby, so I just like snapped it up and just read it. It sort of didn't quite live up to my expectations completely. The book does go really hard in some aspects. Alex is very much a violent person, which I appreciate in a character. Like, I thought that was really cool, but I almost expected it to go harder. Like, it pretty much stayed within reality, which I think for some reason I had gotten it in my head that it was gonna be like way over the top violent. I was sort of surprised to find that this was kind of just like a slow paced, like character driven story. The other thing is that I don't usually vibe with contemporary anything, so it took me like a little bit longer to get invested in. I'm not gonna blame the book itself for that. That's totally on me. The writing was also super, super good. Really, really good prose, really well polished. The characters were distinct and well developed, I felt like. I really loved Alex, the main character. Listening to her interiority was very fascinating. It was actually really hard to put down. Like, I finished the audiobook in like, I wonder exactly how long, because it took me a couple of days. Let's see what Libby says. So for a 7-hour audiobook, probably at 1.5 to 2 times speed, it took me 5 hours. It was really good. It's set in this sort of like small town, maybe like Midwest or East Coast sort of vibes. I grew up in like a small dirty town where everybody knows each other, and so like I found it sort of really relatable in that sense. I ended up giving it 4 stars. That's everything that I read in May. Thank you so very much for joining me. I am really proud of myself for still reading 9 books, even though a couple of them were very short. I'm feeling a little bit slumpy. I'm starting to get better. It happens every now and then. Those are the times when audiobooks like really come to the rescue. Thank you everybody for joining me. I really appreciate you. If you were to subscribe to this channel, I would appreciate it so much. Take care, and I will see you all in the next one.